District, and I'm here to present a bill that is probably familiar to many of you. We've heard this bill in front of this committee before, but it is a bill that addresses the corporate franchise tax. And as many of you know, the corporate franchise tax is a tax basically to get the privilege to pay more taxes. It's a very much a example of double taxation, in which you have to basically pay taxes on what you have on your balance sheet. So that comes from income, which of course is taxed as income. It includes property, which again is taxed as property. And so it's easy to see the example that it's a form of double taxation. This bill does not eliminate the corporate franchise tax immediately. It includes a phase out, which reduces the percentage of the franchise tax over time, and then also increases the threshold upon which you'd have to pay any franchise tax, increases that gradually. Also, currently, if you have assets of $1 million or less, you don't have to pay corporate franchise tax. This would gradually increase that, and so until the percentage was phased out also, so it would eventually completely phase out the corporate franchise tax. And it includes in the bill a provision that was in the bill last year that addressed that it would apply to companies that provided health insurance for half of their employees. And that was an issue that was a hot issue or important issue that had a lot of discussion on many bills last year. We haven't heard quite as much about that this year, but I think it's still important that businesses participate in that. But the main part of the bill is really to the elimination of that franchise tax to make Missouri, we talk through the session, and we have different tax credits for this and exemptions for that, and then many of those are very important as far as stimulating economic activity. But I think the thing that we can do the most to stimulate economic activity and make Missouri a business-friendly state is, number one, lower the overall tax burden, and number two, simplify the tax code. And this would do both for business. For many businesses, they don't have to pay much in corporate franchise tax. They may have to pay more to have the bookwork done to figure out if they have to pay corporate franchise tax. So it's a real burden from that point of view too. It's not just the cost of the tax, but it's the cost of the administration of the tax. So I have a couple witnesses. I'd be glad to answer any questions, but I think that this is legislation that is important. It's late in the session, I realize, and we may not be able to get it done. Hopefully we'll get the discussion at some point on the floor, but I definitely want to be laying the groundwork for pursuing this. If we don't get it done this year, definitely next year. So,
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tracy Weddle, and I'm here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. And I thank Representative Sutherland for filing this legislation. He's carried this legislation for us for quite a few years, as well as Senator Gibbons, and it actually made the governor's State of the State address last year, so it has been a priority. We came pretty close to passing it. It doesn't take long for a corporation to reach that $1 million threshold when you're looking at a corporation's par value of their stock or their assets, which includes their land, accounts receivable, and all their inventory. So the franchise tax is not a tax on just large corporations. It does impact smaller and medium-sized corporations. And it also doesn't take into account if a corporation is profitable. A corporation could have a significant loss and they would still be subject to the corporate franchise tax. So we do support the phase out or the repeal of the franchise tax. We do believe that as Representative Sutherland pointed out, it is probably the most unfair element in taxation, which is double taxation. And I think last year there were 9 states that had a franchise tax. Kansas actually passed legislation to eliminate their franchise tax. So Missouri corporations are at a taxing disadvantage. I think in a perfect world, we'd love to see this. Because it is double taxation, we would love to see this phased out in 1 year, but we recognize the impact that it would have to GR. And so we look forward to working with the committee. It is a 5-year phase out, but the Chamber would support phasing it out over a longer period of time. And I have some numbers that would show the fiscal impact maybe over a 7 to 10 year phase out. So with that, I'd just be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the